Across the UK, the cobbled streets, shadowed alleys, and ancient ruins tell stories far darker than history books allow. For centuries, towns and cities have guided brave souls on ghost walks, tours through the haunted underbelly of castles, graveyards, prisons, and blood-soaked streets. But these are not ordinary walks. They are journeys into places where the dead still linger, where footsteps follow when no one is behind you, where the air grows cold and whispers rise from the shadows. Tonight, we'll take you on 10 of the most haunted ghost walks in the UK. Walks so terrifying, so drenched in tragedy and restless spirits, that you should never attempt them alone. From Edinburgh's cursed underground vaults, to York's blood-soaked streets, to London's chilling tales of murder and execution, these are true scary stories tied to real places, real history, and real hauntings. So tighten your coat, keep your eyes sharp, and step carefully. Because once you start these ghost walks, you may never walk the same way again. Number 1. Edinburgh Vaults Ghost Walk, Scotland. Beneath Edinburgh's famous Royal Mile lies a hidden world most tourists never see. The vaults, built in the 18th century, were originally meant to store goods and serve as workshops. But as the years went on, they became something far darker. Abandoned by merchants, the vaults turned into a refuge for the city's poorest. Families huddled in pitch-black chambers, without light, without warmth, surrounded by damp stone and misery. Disease spread, crime festered, and desperate souls suffered in silence. Many died down here, their lives swallowed by the darkness. Today, when you walk through the Edinburgh vaults on a ghost tour, you don't just see old stone walls. You step into a place where suffering clings to the air. People report hearing footsteps following them even when the group is still. Whispers echo in empty tunnels. Some visitors claim to feel an icy hand brush against their arm, while others collapse under a sudden feeling of dread so heavy they can't breathe. The most feared presence is a shadowy figure known as Mr. Boots. Guides describe him as tall, broad, and hostile. He's named for the heavy footsteps people hear echoing behind them. Some say he hates intruders. Witnesses have been shoved, scratched, or left trembling after feeling him close. Tour leaders often warn guests to stay alert when passing certain chambers, because that's where Mr. Boots is most often seen. But he's not the only one. A child's ghost is said to tug on the clothes of visitors. Cold winds sweep through sealed rooms. Lights flicker, batteries die, and people hear screams coming from walls that should be silent. What makes the Edinburgh vaults so terrifying is not just the ghosts, but the knowledge of how many real lives ended in misery here. Every step echoes with the pain of the past. Walking through the vaults alone is unthinkable. Even with a group, people often leave pale, shaken, and certain they weren't walking in empty tunnels. Number 2. The York Ghost Walk, England. York is one of the oldest cities in England, and many believe it is the most haunted city in the entire UK. Its narrow medieval streets, ancient stone walls, and centuries of bloodshed have turned it into a place where the past refuses to rest. Walking through York at night, you don't need much imagination to feel the weight of history pressing close. The city is alive with ghost stories, and the York Ghost Walk brings them all to life. The haunting begins with echoes of the Romans, who first built a fortress here nearly 2,000 years ago. Soldiers have been seen marching in full formation through basements and cellars, their figures cut off at the knees because the original Roman road lies beneath the modern floor level. Witnesses have frozen in terror as ghostly helmets and shields glimmer in the half-light, before vanishing back into the ground. But York's ghosts are not just ancient. The medieval plague left thousands of bodies piled in mass graves, and the city's streets once ran with disease and despair. People who join the walk often hear cries in alleyways, smell the stench of decay in places where no foul air should be, and see shadows darting between timber-framed houses. Many of these lost souls are said to still wander, unable to escape the suffering that ended their lives. The most chilling tale comes from Clifford's Tower, where in the 12th century hundreds of Jewish residents sought shelter during a brutal massacre. Surrounded and trapped, many chose to die together rather than fall to the mob. The tower is now one of the most haunted places in York, and those who dare visit at night claim to hear screams, prayers, and the sound of fire crackling when there is nothing but silence. But York's ghosts are everywhere. From headless figures near the shambles, to phantom children heard laughing and crying, to the cloaked monks seen gliding through churchyards, the city never rests. Guides often warn that spirits in York are not always content to stay unseen. Visitors have felt hands clutch their shoulders, icy breaths on their necks, and whispers close to their ears as they walk through the streets. York is a city where history and horror walk side by side. By the end of the ghost walk, many guests leave shaken, not because of what they've heard but because of what they've felt. In York, the dead are never far away. Number 3. The Tower of London Ghost Walk, London. Few places in the UK carry as much blood and terror in their stones as the Tower of London. Built by William the Conqueror in the 11th century, this fortress has served as a royal palace, prison, execution ground, and torture chamber. For nearly 1,000 years, the tower has been the stage for betrayal, power struggles, and death. Walking here at night is like walking directly into the darkest pages of history. The most famous ghosts are the queens who died within its walls. Anne Boleyn, the ill-fated second wife of Henry VIII, was beheaded on Tower Green in 1536. Her spirit is said to wander restlessly, sometimes carrying her severed head beneath her arm. Some witnesses describe her silent figure drifting through the Chapel Royal of St. Peter ad Vincula, where she was buried hastily after her execution. Others say she has been seen on the battlements, staring toward the palace where she once lived in splendor before her brutal fall. Another tragic figure is Lady Jane Grey, the 9 Days Queen. Barely a teenager when she was crowned, she was executed for treason in 1554. Her ghost has been spotted weeping at the sight of her death, her delicate frame glowing faintly in the dark. Many believe she lingers because she was robbed of her life and crown before she ever had the chance to rule. The tower also carries tales of children lost to cruelty. The princes in the tower, Edward V and his younger brother Richard, were imprisoned here in the 15th century by their uncle, Richard III. They mysteriously vanished and many believe they were murdered. Centuries later, the bones of 2 young boys were discovered hidden within the tower walls. Visitors and guards have reported the sound of children's laughter echoing through the White Tower, and some have claimed to see 2 pale figures holding hands before vanishing into the stone. But the tower's darkness goes deeper. Torture chambers in the dungeons tell their own stories of screams and suffering. Prisoners like Guy Fawkes were broken and interrogated here, and some say his cries still echo underground. Guards on night duty have reported being pushed, slapped, or frozen in place by unseen hands. One even claimed to see a phantom bear charging at him before it disappeared, leaving him collapsed in terror. The Ghost Walk takes you along Traitor's Gate, where prisoners entered by boat knowing they would never leave alive. It brings you to Tower Green, where queens knelt before the axe. It circles the Bloody Tower, where shadows shift and whispers rise from nowhere. At every turn, you are reminded that the tower is not just a monument, it is a mass grave where the restless dead linger. The Tower of London is one of the most haunted sites in the UK, and walking its grounds after dark is not for the faint of heart. Here, every wall has absorbed pain, every stone holds a memory, and every shadow may hide a spirit waiting to be seen. Number 4. The Glasgow Necropolis Ghost Walk, Scotland. On a hill overlooking Glasgow Cathedral lies the Glasgow Necropolis, a sprawling Victorian cemetery often called the City of the Dead. More than 50,000 souls rest here, their graves marked by towering monuments, weathered tombstones, and elaborate mausoleums. By day, the cemetery is striking, a masterpiece of 19th century design. But by night, it transforms into something else entirely. Many who walk its winding paths after sunset claim they are not alone. The necropolis was built during the 1830s, a time when Glasgow was expanding rapidly. It was meant to be a grand resting place for the city's wealthy and powerful, but also for thousands of ordinary men, women, and children. Poverty, disease, and industrial accidents filled its graves, leaving behind countless untold stories of hardship and loss. Some say this is why the air feels so heavy here, as if the weight of grief lingers in the soil itself. Ghost stories tied to the necropolis have been whispered for generations. Visitors speak of spectral figures drifting between the gravestones, their faces pale and eyes hollow. Others describe sudden cold spots, as though unseen presences brush past them. One of the most famous tales is of a cloaked phantom that patrols the higher grounds, silently watching intruders before vanishing into the mist. But perhaps the most unsettling legend is that of the Gorbals vampire. In the 1950s, children in the Gorbals area of Glasgow began spreading rumors of a vampire with iron teeth that haunted the necropolis, preying on young victims. So strong was the fear that hundreds of children gathered at the cemetery one night, armed with sticks and knives, ready to hunt the creature. The authorities dismissed it as hysteria, but even today, locals say the story reflects something darker that still stirs within the graveyard's walls. The atmosphere itself is unnerving. The cemetery sits high above the city, and when the fog rolls in, the statues of angels and demons seem to move in the shifting light. Many ghost walk participants have reported hearing footsteps crunching behind them, only to turn and find no one there. Others describe whispers drifting through the air, low voices calling their names or reciting prayers in languages long forgotten. Walking the necropolis after dark is unlike any other ghost walk in Scotland. It is not just the sheer number of the dead, but the feeling that the veil between the living and the departed is thin here. Some say the spirits do not mean harm, they are only restless, bound to the city that shaped their lives and deaths. But others insist there is a darker presence, one that feeds on fear, watching from the shadows as the living dare to trespass. The Glasgow necropolis is more than a cemetery, it is a labyrinth of memory, grief, and lingering spirits. To walk here alone, beneath the looming statues and the cold gaze of stone angels, is to step into a place where the dead have not been silenced. Their stories are carved in stone, but their presence is far from at rest. Number 5. Whitby Ghost Walk, North Yorkshire. Whitby is a place where history and horror meet. Perched on the rugged Yorkshire coast, this fishing town is forever tied to Bram Stoker's Dracula. It was here, in the shadow of the ruined Whitby Abbey, that Stoker found inspiration for his immortal vampire. But the legends of Whitby go far deeper than fiction. On the ghost walks that wind through its narrow streets and windswept cliffs, the past is never silent. High above the town stand the skeletal remains of Whitby Abbey. By day the ruins look majestic, a Gothic silhouette against the sky. But at night, when the sea fog creeps inland and the wind howls, the abbey takes on a more sinister presence. Visitors claim to see shadowy monks drifting among the crumbling arches, their chants echoing faintly in the night air. Some even report a spectral woman in white who gazes out to sea, as though waiting for a ship that will never return. The town itself is equally haunted. Its cobbled lanes and centuries-old inns have absorbed centuries of shipwrecks, drownings, and tragedies. Fishermen once whispered of sea spirits that lured sailors to their doom, and even today, locals speak of phantom ships appearing on the horizon, vanishing as quickly as they come. Down by the harbor, where the smell of salt water and fish hangs heavy, people on the ghost walk have heard footsteps following them, or the sound of chains dragging across the cobbles. One of the most enduring tales is that of the Barghest, a demonic black dog said to roam the town. Glowing red eyes, a growl that chills the blood, and a presence that signals death. Sightings of the creature are still reported by those who walk the lonely paths at night. Guides warn visitors to tread carefully near the old churchyard of St. Mary's, where the Barghest is said to linger. The graves there, leaning and weathered, overlook the sea like silent sentinels, and many who wander among them have claimed to feel unseen eyes watching. But Whitby's Ghost Walk is not only about individual spirits, it is about atmosphere. The constant crash of the waves, the cries of seabirds circling overhead, the scent of brine and decay, it all adds to the sense that Whitby belongs not to the living, but to something older, darker, and unending. Each corner of the town seems steeped in superstition. Each ruin whispers a warning. It is little wonder Bram Stoker chose Whitby as the place where Dracula first came ashore. The town has always carried an air of the uncanny. Those who walk its ghost tours often leave with more questions than answers, glancing back over their shoulders at shadows that do not belong to anyone alive. Whitby is not simply haunted, it is a place where the dead, the drowned, and the damned linger by the sea. And when the tide comes in and the abbey looms against the moon, even the bravest admit there are parts of Whitby best left to the spirits. Number 6. The Shambles Ghost Walk, York. The Shambles in York is one of the most famous medieval streets in England. Narrow, crooked, and lined with timber-framed houses that seem to lean in toward one another, it feels frozen in time. By daylight, it looks charming with its quaint shops and cobbled lanes. But at night, when the tourists leave and the shadows gather, the Shambles becomes something else entirely. A place where history's darker side presses close, and where the echoes of its bloody past are said to stir. For centuries, this was the heart of York's butchery trade. Animal carcasses once hung from wooden hooks outside the shops. Blood and offal flowed through open gutters running down the street. It was a place of noise, death, and the constant smell of slaughter. Locals believe the energy of that violence soaked into the very stones, and those who walk here after dark often report uneasy feelings, as though dozens of unseen eyes are watching from the shuttered windows above. Guides on the ghost walk tell chilling stories of figures that appear and vanish without a sound. One of the most common sightings is that of a butcher in a blood-stained apron, his face pale and twisted, who lingers in doorways before melting into the walls. Shoppers and walkers alike have felt icy cold drafts sweep past them, followed by the distinct metallic tang of blood in the air, even when the street is empty. Another tale speaks of the spirits of children. During outbreaks of plague, many lived and died in the cramped rooms above the shops. Visitors have claimed to hear faint sobbing, or the sound of small feet running across the uneven floors. Some even report seeing shadowy childlike figures darting between the buildings, their laughter turning into screams before vanishing into silence. The shambles is also linked to darker presences. On some nights, passers-by describe a suffocating heaviness, as though something malevolent lingers in the narrow passage. One chilling account speaks of a figure cloaked in black, its face hidden, that walks silently along the cobbles, following anyone unlucky enough to glance back at it. When confronted, the figure disappears, leaving only a wave of dread behind. What makes the shambles so unsettling is how close the past feels. The timber houses lean over the street like they are listening. The cobblestones echo with footsteps that don't belong to the living. And when the street grows still, the imagination plays tricks or perhaps reveals truths best left unseen. Many who join the shambles ghost walk leave convinced they brushed against something unnatural. Whether it was the restless dead of York's plague years, the butchers who stained the street with blood, or something older that clings to the twisting alleyways, the shambles remains a place where the line between past and present blurs. Number 7. The Chester Ghost Walk, England. Chester is one of England's oldest cities, a place where Roman walls still stand and narrow medieval lanes twist through centuries of history. By day, the city feels alive with its half-timbered buildings, bustling markets, and proud heritage. But when night falls, Chester takes on another identity. Beneath its beauty lies a darker tale, one written in blood, war, and suffering. On the Chester Ghost Walk, guides lead you through streets where the dead are said to linger, unwilling to be forgotten. The Romans built Chester nearly 2,000 years ago, and their presence has never faded. Beneath modern shops and pubs, ancient roads still run. Visitors often describe seeing phantom soldiers marching in formation, their legs cut off at the knees. The chilling detail has an explanation. These apparitions are believed to be Roman troops still marching along the original road surface, now buried several feet below the modern pavement. Witnesses claim to hear the scrape of sandals on stone and the clink of armor, only to find the street empty when they look back. But Chester's hauntings are not only Roman. During the plague years, entire families were wiped out. Those who walk the rows, the city's famous two-tiered medieval galleries, speak of gaunt faces staring out from dark windows. Some have reported hearing coughing and groaning as if the sick were still trapped in their homes. The faint toll of a phantom bell has even been heard, echoing through the streets long after the churches have grown silent. The city also has its share of tragic souls. At St. John's Church, one of Chester's oldest sacred sites, figures in white have been seen drifting through the graveyard, glowing faintly before dissolving into the night air. The Falcon Inn, a timber-framed building on Bridge Street, is said to be plagued by poltergeist activity. Doors slam, unseen hands push guests, and cold spots appear out of nowhere. Staff have even refused to enter certain rooms alone after dark. Perhaps the most unnerving stories come from Chester's underground. Beneath the city lie ancient cellars and passageways, many forgotten, where soldiers once hid and prisoners once languished. Visitors describe overwhelming feelings of dread in these spaces, as if they've stepped into the very heart of the city's pain. Some emerge shaken, insisting they felt a hand clutch their shoulder or heard whispers spoken directly into their ear. What makes Chester's Ghost Walk so gripping is how layered the hauntings are. Each corner seems to hold another century, another story of death or despair. Roman soldiers march where no roads remain. Plague victims wander in silence. Spirits of the executed drift through alleys, their grief etched into the stones themselves. Number 8. The Oxford Ghost Walk, England. Oxford is a city of dreaming spires, ancient colleges, and timeless cobbled streets. But beneath its scholarly beauty lies a darker story. For every great thinker who walked its halls, there are whispers of those who never left. The Oxford Ghost Walk leads visitors through the heart of this historic city, where shadows of the past linger in cloisters, libraries, and narrow alleyways. The University of Oxford is over 800 years old, and with that age comes countless tales of tragedy and unrest. At Merton College, one of the oldest, students have reported the sound of footsteps pacing in empty corridors at night. Some even speak of seeing a hooded scholar gliding through the quadrangle, disappearing before their eyes. Guides say this spirit is a former fellow, doomed to wander the place he loved, unable to leave even in death. At Exeter College, the ghost of a royalist soldier from the English Civil War is said to roam the grounds, still bound to the bloodshed that once tore the city apart. Meanwhile, in New College cloisters, figures in black robes have been seen walking silently through the stone arches, only to vanish into the shadows of the chapel walls. Visitors often describe a sudden chill, as if unseen eyes are watching. The Bodleian Library, one of the most famous in the world, has its own eerie legends. Staff whisper of cold spots, sudden gusts of air, and the rustle of unseen pages turning when no one is there. Some claim the spirits of scholars remain among the books, forever bound to their life's work. Oxford's alleyways hold their own terrors too. In the narrow passage of Turl Street, a young woman is said to appear, dressed in old-fashioned clothing, silently weeping before fading into the night. Local lore tells of her tragic death at the hands of a jealous lover, and her sorrow is said to echo down the centuries. Even the city's pubs are not free of hauntings. The Turf Tavern, centuries old, is rumored to host ghostly drinkers who vanish when approached. Staff report clattering tankards and whispers in empty rooms, as if unseen guests are still raising their glasses to the past. What makes Oxford so unsettling is the way its beauty conceals its hauntings. The grandeur of the colleges, the majesty of the libraries, and the quiet of the cloisters all hide shadows that refuse to fade. On the Oxford Ghost Walk, every step takes you deeper into a history where scholars and soldiers, lovers and lost souls, remain tethered to the city they once called home. For those who dare to walk its streets after dark, Oxford is not only a place of learning but also of restless spirits. Here, knowledge and ghosts walk side by side, and the past refuses to stay buried. Number 9. The London Bridge and Southwark Ghost Walk, London. London Bridge and the Southwark district have long been associated with blood, misery, and restless spirits. This area of the capital has seen centuries of executions, prisons, and unspeakable suffering. When you walk its streets at night, the weight of history presses in, and the shadows feel alive. The original London Bridge, built in the medieval era, was infamous for displaying the severed heads of traitors on spikes, glaring down at all who entered the city. Guides say the screams of the executed still echo in the air, and some visitors have reported seeing ghostly heads drifting above the river, their hollow eyes staring in silence. Nearby Southwark Cathedral, one of London's oldest churches, has its own share of spectral tales. Figures in long robes have been seen kneeling in the pews, only to vanish when approached. One of the most chilling accounts speaks of a dark shadow that moves through the cloisters, sometimes brushing past the living with an icy chill. But it is the prisons of Southwark that hold the darkest memories. The notorious Clink prison, once a place of filth and cruelty, is said to still be haunted by its tortured inmates. Moans, rattling chains, and phantom footsteps echo through its remains. Some who visit speak of feeling invisible hands grab their arms, as if the desperate souls of the past are still reaching out for help. Southwark was also home to gruesome execution grounds. St. George's Fields, where countless rebels and criminals were put to death, is believed to be cursed. On certain nights, the sound of crowds gathering, drums beating, and cries of agony are said to fill the air, even though the site has long since changed. Even in the pubs and taverns, the hauntings continue. The George Inn, a coaching inn dating back to the 17th century, is haunted by spectral guests. Patrons report hearing heavy boots climbing the stairs when no one is there, and shadowy figures lingering in the corners, silently watching. The walk through Southwark is more than a ghost tour. It's a journey through a part of London that thrived on spectacle and cruelty, where death was entertainment and punishment was public. Today, the laughter of the living mixes uneasily with the cries of the dead, and the streets whisper reminders of those who suffered here. On the London Bridge and Southwark Ghost Walk, every step carries you closer to the lingering echoes of execution, imprisonment, and despair. Number 10. The Canterbury Ghost Walk, Kent. Canterbury is one of England's most historic cities, a place of pilgrimage, faith, and bloodshed. By day, its cobbled streets and towering cathedral seem full of peace. But by night, the city reveals another side, a darker story written by centuries of death, betrayal, and restless spirits. The Canterbury Ghost Walk leads you through the shadowed alleys and medieval lanes, where tales of the supernatural cling to every stone. The most famous haunt is Canterbury Cathedral itself. For over 900 years, worshippers have walked its halls, but so too have the dead. Many believe the spirit of Archbishop Thomas Becket still roams here, struck down in 1170 by 4 knights who believed they were carrying out the king's command. Witnesses report hearing ghostly footsteps in the crypt and whispers of prayer in the darkened chapels, long after the doors are locked. The cathedral grounds are not alone in their hauntings. Stories tell of monks who wander the cloisters, forever bound to their holy vows, their cowled figures gliding silently across the flagstones before fading into thin air. Some visitors describe feeling an icy presence brush past them, as though the spirits resent intrusions from the living. Canterbury streets also carry grim memories of plague and murder. In narrow passages like the Butter Market and around the old city walls, people have reported shadowy figures darting past or standing silently at corners, watching before vanishing into the night. The air grows colder in these spots, and even seasoned ghost hunters admit to feeling overwhelmed. One chilling tale centers on the Greyfriars Chapel, a surviving remnant of the Franciscan friary. Locals say a monk in a grey robe haunts the grounds, his hollow eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. He is thought to be a restless soul, punished for breaking sacred vows, doomed to wander until absolution. Even the city's ancient inns are haunted. The Sun Hotel, built in the 15th century, is known for ghostly laughter, footsteps, and doors that open and close by themselves. Guests have reported waking to the sight of shadowy figures standing at the foot of their beds, watching in silence before fading away. On the Canterbury Ghost Walk, the past feels alive. The city may be filled with history, but it is also filled with memories of violence, devotion, and death that refuse to rest. To walk these streets after dark is to step into a place where time blurs, and the spirits of monks, pilgrims, and murderers walk beside you in the gloom. Every story you've heard tonight is tied to real places, real tragedies, and real people who lived, suffered, and often died in pain. That is why these spirits remain, tethered to the streets, cathedrals, cemeteries, and hidden corners of the UK. When you walk them, you are not walking alone, you are walking alongside centuries of restless souls. If you ever dare to take one of these ghost walks yourself, remember this. The guides may tell the tales, but the cold touch on your shoulder, the whisper in your ear, or the shadow watching from the corner, that is something no guide can explain. Would you walk these haunted paths after dark? Or would you turn away, leaving the spirits to wander without you? If you enjoyed this journey into the UK's most haunted ghost walks, subscribe now and join us again for more chilling stories, haunted places, and encounters with the supernatural await. The night is long and the dead are waiting.